Red Bull just launched a secret attack on Mercedes. And if the FIA agrees with their evidence, the Mercedes engine could be banned before Bahrain. We're talking about a $20 million power unit, a full factory program, and 2 world-class drivers, all at risk because of one hidden trick that Red Bull claims breaks the rules without ever being detected. According to Red Bull's internal report, leaked just hours ago, Mercedes is using thermal deformation to create illegal combustion pressure during races, not with software, not with electronics, but with heat-reactive materials that flex just enough to unlock horsepower no one else can replicate. In short, the engine cheats the sensors. The power gain is real. And the data shows it happening every 17 laps. Red Bull's engineers reverse-engineered the numbers from Barcelona. They found compression spikes, thermal shifts, and timing patterns that don't match any known FIA-approved engine behavior. And now, they've handed it all over to the FIA, to Liberty Media, and to legal teams already preparing for the worst. If this report is right, Mercedes may not just lose Bahrain, they could lose the entire season. And the best part? We have the story, the timeline, and the exact moment this scandal detonates. Let's break it down. It started with numbers. Not rumors. Not headlines. Just raw data. Straight from Barcelona. Red Bull had access to the same telemetry as every other team. But their engineers noticed something no one else caught. At first, it looked like noise. A small torque spike, happening exactly 17 laps into every long run. Not once. Not twice. Every time. But only on the Mercedes power unit. And here's what made it strange. There was no corresponding change in throttle. No energy deployment boost. No adjustment in fuel flow. Just a subtle increase in pressure inside the combustion chamber. Uncommanded. Unexplained. And if the sensors were right, impossible under normal conditions. So Red Bull took the numbers back to Milton Keynes. They ran them through their proprietary engine simulation rig, layer by layer, second by second. And the deeper they went, the clearer it became. Mercedes' engine wasn't just running clean. It was behaving in a way no legal engine is supposed to. The compression ratio changed mid-race, under stable input. And the only way that can happen is if the shape of the combustion chamber itself is physically shifting. Not through software. Not through hydraulics. Through heat. Under racing conditions, Mercedes' pre-chamber walls appear to expand at high temperatures, creating a secondary compression effect that lasts for about 5 laps, then resets once the unit cools down. That's why no one caught it during post-session inspections. Because under cold conditions, the engine reverts to standard dimensions. But at full load, it transforms. And if that's true, Red Bull knows exactly what it means. The engine passes every test, but still delivers illegal gains. It's the perfect trick. No moving parts. No electronics. Just materials engineered to warp at racing heat and snap back before anyone gets a look. That's not a loophole. That's a weapon. So Red Bull built a report. They compared the M17's pressure maps to every known configuration approved by the FIA. They ran simulations using control variables. They identified a unique thermal spike that matched only the Mercedes engine. under high-speed, high-torque, high-temp scenarios. And they had one conclusion. This isn't clever. It's illegal. That's the moment they acted. No press. No public statements. Just a sealed file. Hand-delivered to the FIA's technical department. Inside that file? Heat expansion curves. Material behavior thresholds. Compression anomalies. And a single statement. Request for full pre-race teardown. Evidence of undeclared deformation behavior in breach of Article 5. No drama. No noise. Just pressure. Applied with surgical precision. And now, the FIA has the evidence. Mercedes has no idea how much Red Bull knows. And the rest of the grid is about to explode. The report from Red Bull hit FIA headquarters just before midnight. No announcement. No leaks. Just a digital file. Encrypted. Time-stamped. Delivered through official compliance channels. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't a demand. It was something far more dangerous. An accusation. Backed by math. Inside the document were over 40 pages of technical evidence. Heat data. Deformation patterns. Material predictions. And a clear suggestion. That Mercedes engine is actively exploiting a behavior never declared and never tested. During homologation, the moment the report landed, the silence inside the FIA collapsed. Because this wasn't just about catching Mercedes. It was about exposing a failure inside their own approval process. Immediately, senior technical staff were called in. One group began cross-checking the homologation paperwork from December. Another reviewed the legality of Red Bull's thermal simulation. And the compliance unit? They started searching for the phrase that everyone was now whispering. Passive mechanical deformation. That phrase sits in a gray area. Not software. Not active aero. But a structural material. Designed to bend. Under very specific conditions. And then bounce back. Before anyone notices. It's not explicitly illegal. But it's never been declared before. And now, it might be the reason the most dominant team of the hybrid era is about to get banned from the first race of the season. But here's the real problem. The FIA already approved this engine. They signed off on the M17 weeks ago. And now, if they act against it, they're not just punishing Mercedes. They're admitting they missed something. That they didn't test enough. Didn't ask the right questions. Didn't catch the trick before it was too late. And that opens the door to something far worse than protest. Legal retaliation from one of the most powerful teams in the world. So inside the FIA, the mood has turned toxic. Some want to move quickly. Issue a conditional ban. Take control before it spirals. Others want to delay. Quietly review. Buy time. But the clock is ticking. Because Bahrain is no longer weeks away. It's days. And if the FIA allows this engine to run, even once, without intervention, every team behind Red Bull will accuse them of complicity. And if they ban it now, Mercedes goes to war. Every outcome comes with a cost. And the one question no one dares say out loud? What if Red Bull is right? Because if they are, this isn't just a scandal. It's the biggest rules breach since Spygate. And this time, it could take down more than just a team. Mercedes didn't flinch. When word reached Brackley that Red Bull had filed evidence, there was no press release, no denial, No panic. Because Toto Wolff had expected this. And he was already 3 steps ahead. The moment Red Bull's report reached the FIA, Mercedes activated what insiders call Protocol Black. A silent, internal escalation. Preemptive legal review. Documentation audit. Total lockdown. Engineers were pulled off development. Communication was routed through legal. Every document related to the M17 engine. Simulations, materials, structural schematics. Was compiled, reviewed, and secured. Digitally. Physically. Legally. Why? Because Mercedes wasn't preparing to explain the engine. They were preparing to defend it. And more importantly, defend the system that approved it. Toto Wolff understands the battlefield. This isn't about the part. It's about the process. And if Red Bull is trying to get the engine banned by exposing a hole in the rules, then Mercedes will protect that hole by pointing back at the rulebook and the people who signed off on it. Behind closed doors, Mercedes' legal team began drafting an argument not of innovation, but of compliance. The engine was declared, inspected, accepted, and passed under official FIA authority. The behavior Red Bull calls manipulation, Mercedes calls it passive thermal response within the tolerances of homologated components. In short, it bends because that's what the material does. Under heat. And it returns to shape. Without electronics. Without movement. Without control. That, they argue, is not a violation. That is the rulebook working exactly as written. And if the FIA tries to change that interpretation now, Toto Wolff made one thing crystal clear. Mercedes will challenge it. Immediately. In court. Publicly. Aggressively. And without compromise. Because if the FIA overturns a homologated design, due to political pressure, Mercedes won't just sue. They'll turn the spotlight back on the FIA itself. Demand full disclosure of the approval process. Force open every technical decision made in the off-season. Expose how rushed the reviews were. How undertested the engine was. How the very system Red Bull is appealing to was never designed to catch this. And that's the trap. Because now the FIA has to choose. Punish Mercedes. And risk being seen as incompetent. Or protect them. And watch the paddock accuse them of bias. Either way, the scandal grows. And Toto? He stays silent. No interviews. No public arguments. Just pressure. Applied like a scalpel. Because Mercedes knows something else too. If the FIA hesitates long enough, if the grid divides just a little further, if Bahrain arrives before a decision is made, they win by default. The engine runs. The season starts. And the precedent is set. What was once illegal is now reality. Unless Red Bull can force their hand. Before the lights go out, the paddock is no longer calm. And definitely not neutral. The moment word spreads that Mercedes is preparing a legal defense, everything shifts. Because for Ferrari, Audi, and Honda, this is no longer about one engine. This is about trust. Trust in the rules. Trust in the process. And most of all, trust that everyone is playing the same game. And right now, none of them believe that's true. Ferrari moves first. Their team principal delivers a carefully worded statement to Italian media. If thermal manipulation is permitted by omission, then the technical foundation of Formula One has already failed. It's not an accusation. It's a declaration. Backed by Maranello's engineering department. Ferrari submits a second report to the FIA. Not to challenge Mercedes directly, but to request clarity on deformation allowances. Under Article 5. They don't use the word illegal. They don't have to. Audi follows next. Still new to the grid. Still politically clean. But increasingly powerful. They contact Liberty Media, not the FIA, and ask a pointed question. How will fans trust the future of power unit regulations if the first engine of 2026 is already operating outside declared limits? That's not a technical challenge. That's a marketing threat. Audi is building its entire factory program on the promise of transparency. And now, they're watching the sport's governing body stumble through a crisis it should have prevented. Then comes Honda. Quiet. Precise. Unapologetic. They release a private memo to the FIA and leak just enough to the press to make sure it's heard. If post-homologation behavior is not regulated, we will demand retroactive compliance testing on all approved engines. Translated? If you let Mercedes run this trick, we'll force you to test everyone else the same way. Which means delays. Which means lawsuits. Which means total collapse of the season opener. Red Bull, meanwhile, stays completely silent because they don't have to speak anymore. Their report was enough. The grid is now doing the rest. And suddenly, what started as one accusation has turned into something much larger. A paddock-wide revolt. One that pits the manufacturers not just against Mercedes, but against the system itself. And the FIA still hasn't made a decision. Because whatever they choose now, ban the engine, let it race, delay the ruling, someone will walk away furious. And someone else will call the lawyers. There's no unity left. Only factions. Only threats. Only silence before the storm. And Bahrain is only 24 hours away.